Hello, and good morning! Alrighty, so I actually was trying to use the other emulator here. Apparently 1.63 recently came out for PPSSPP, but yeah, for whatever reason, it doesn't exactly want to resize itself, so that was a little bit of a weird situation. Alright, so, without any further ado here, so there was a fight that I've been talking about for quite some time here. Which was, of course, Liches versus Angels. So, go ahead and get that mess going. I will say this was a bit of a pain in the nads to set up, and that's putting it lightly. So, okay, why am I pulling up the wrong windows here? It would help if I actually had the game up, huh? Alright, so, first off, there were a couple changes that I wanted to show off since last time. First off, you may notice Rocks and Ultros teams getting a second version down here. That's mostly because monster units got a ranged attack recently, and I have to fully remake the team in order to add new items to them. So I basically remade these for the hell of it, just to see what happens. So I gave half of them ranged weapons. Alright, we got Heaven's Hellions and Hell's... well, it was supposed to be a pun on Heaven, but Hell's Heathens. So there we go. Turns out to be a little bit of a tongue twister. So if you're unaware about how to get Divine Knights or Angel Knights or whatever you want to call them, they look a little bit like this. Pretty much you gotta go get a weird blood-covered cross fork-looking thing. You gotta get it as a drop in San Bronza, and then you have to basically bring somebody that's a skeleton up to, I think it's floor 3. The one that's kind of like a big pillar kind of situation. The one where there's a cutscene of somebody turning their units into angels. Which, by the way, how would you ever figure out if that poor helpful soul wasn't there? But at any rate, so they end up going and turning their units into angels, so you go by there. Weirdly enough, in base game, you are limited to only carrying around one of those weird blood-covered crosses at one time. So if you ever want more than one, good luck repeating San Bronza and getting that stupid drop over and over. Now the nice thing is, it's one vision, so you can just basically farm up a bunch of them and go make a bunch of Angel Knights at the same time. That being said, all of these have, well, all these save files have basically all of every item, so didn't really have to do that, but it's a little bit of a pain if you want to get Angel Knights. If you're wondering about their abilities, so they, weapon-wise, they get one-handed swords, cudgels, instruments, and what's the other one here? I get something else, too. And, wait, did I say cudgels? Spears. There we go. They get one-handed spears. So, yeah, they're basically a upgraded Flying Knight, as the name would basically tell you. Now, as far as how their abilities have changed for one vision, so Requiem is basically a divine explosion, and it'll blow up zombies. Celestial Song is a thing that restores health to, well... As it says here, basically it takes whatever TP that you have built up and turns that into health for an entire area, so it's basically HP infusion, but as an AoE. I got Day of Reckoning that basically resets RT, TP, and MP, which seems absurd for 60 TP if you ask me. I got Poignant Melody, which removes all TP in an area, and then you got Silent Song, which removes all MP in, well, like it says here, does an equal amount of health damage. So, for example, if they go up to a mage and say that mage has 200 MP, they will essentially sap all of their MP and do 200 additional damage. So all of their abilities are pretty darn fantastic. It starts off with, these sword ones start off with Parry, Augment Light, Draconic, Counter Hit, and their respective weapon skills. Draconic-wise, they get all of the helpful ones, so Gift of Renewal, Nullify Strike, Acrobatics, Ballistics, Warcraft, and Holy Shield, and Martyrdom. Though it's unlikely they're going to end up using Martyrdom, because the AI doesn't like anything to do with the life or death system. Okay, next up we got the Spear builds. They're pretty similar on their abilities. They're just there with Spears and Divine. Divine-wise, let's go back over to here. They get access to most of the offensive ones, except instead of the large AoEs, they get access to the bursts. Interestingly, the bursts end up switching position once they're in this menu. Not sure why. And then they get heals, but no AoE heals, since their skills already fill that role. Then you got the cudgel builds here. Those ones will all end up having a bit more magic-y stuff to them. Now the life giver, yeah, no, that's a casting staff. If you're unfamiliar, there's actually two different types of cudgels at this point. You got the fighting ones, and then you got the casting ones. And the casting ones give you more of an int bonus. The fighting ones have more of a parry bonus. So, alright. So that looks fine. Skill-wise, yeah, three different, let's see, Divine, Draconic, and then they were supposed to have something else. But, actually no, I think I changed my mind on that third magic tree when it came to these guys, because there really wasn't a point, since they're all light-based. There we go. And then you got the instrument guys, who are also Divine Draconic. So, I think that pretty well covers what these guys are all about. Let's move on to the Liches. So we got Hell's Heathens over here. Now, similar as usual, they're split into 4 different types of builds. So the primary ones here, the ones that are starting it off, they're going to be essentially a double knife evasion build. I know that seems a little bit odd, but it turns out you can actually get their avoidance pretty darn high. That you can get it up to 220 over here with this kind of stuff, and that's actually without giving them leggings or something like that. So Phantom Cloak for evasion. You got knives and parry knives right here. You might be wondering what the deal is with this build. Essentially, their 2 TP abilities are Reflection and kind of an MP Sap / MP Share. Now, when you end up using those a fair bit, you need to build up TP, so these guys can potentially just pretty much counter-build their TP from melee attacks from this kind of build. That's kind of the idea, since they don't really have a whole lot of opportunities to build them. So that's why I build 3 of the Liches like this. Skill-wise, they're going for Dark, Draconic, Necromancy. Then they've got their daggers, and then they've got Reflection and Salvation. I was actually confused a few streams ago as to why a unit ended up hitting itself, and that's pretty much all Reflection does. I completely missed that they had a Lich on their team. So Salvation will essentially take all of the MP from everybody in its relatively large AoE, and it'll essentially just redistribute the MP among that group. So like it says here, if it's 50% or more, it'll end up giving that MP to everybody around. Otherwise, it'll end up sapping MP from everybody that's around, which essentially means that if you have multiple Liches, they can pretty much all share an MP pool to some degree if they end up using it right. Which is a bit of a cool thing. So yeah, we've got that evasion build, we've got the cudgel builds here, who are all for casting. So we got dark exclusively on those ones. Let's see, we've also got ones here that are Dark and Necro, and then we've got other ones that are Dark and Draconic. You might be wondering why Dark every single time. They're pretty much entirely built around supporting Dark-based abilities. They get access to other stuff, but by and large, you really just want to leave them with that kind of stuff. There were 3 right here that were given other things, like Air and Earth, to counteract each other, as well as 1 more for Ice, just kind of for the hell of it. But by and large, they're just very heavy casters, and they're also pretty phenomenally slow, from what I remember. Alright, that's enough rambling and going on and on. Let's go ahead and get this going. Personally, between these 2, I want to say the Liches... Well, okay. Here's how I think this will go. Because if all the Divine Knights end up getting their abilities off, they should be able to completely lock down the Liches. That being said, the Liches have a lot more offense, so if they're able to kill them off, or otherwise stun the angels before they're able to do stuff, then that's a different story. Also, they can teleport. So Liches can teleport, angels can fly. So this is a little bit different than they were performing earlier. Good to see that the AI has a little bit of variance. They're being a lot more cautious on this map. So before getting into any of these fights, I typically like to go and put them through what I like to call the reason way test, in which if essentially the team is saved and put through a reason way fight. That's the only The only one that is both a flat map and also lets you get all 12, Forgot Burhinder does that. So it's the only one that gives you access to all 12 slots while also being on a flat map. The AI can handle it pretty well. And, you know, you can get a pretty decent sense for how stuff's going. How's stuff going? No, it's a fight that can vary between 18 and 21 units on the opposite side, so you're outnumbered. You're typically outdone in a lot of ways, so they will eventually lose in most cases. Though I will say the Liches held up ridiculously well on that one, so I'll probably start putting the results of those tests just kind of for funsies, as it were. Plus, not to mention, when you bring in all 12 units like that, it makes it a lot easier to set their AI. The way that the game ends up saving it is if you like for example, like when you're building a team, right? Say you have your AI, you know, you have a few units set as AI. It will remember that for next time and keep that team loadout. There's actually a little option whether to keep that feature on or off. So, you know, that's all well and good there. Basically just lets you set them without having to set them once you get to this map. Also, it allows for sometimes saving the automation for the text. Doesn't always want to do that. It's kind of an odd thing. Sometimes it saves the text automation, sometimes it doesn't. I really don't know why that in particular is something that gets forgotten a lot. Alright, so far the Liches are doing it, but once the Angel's TP abilities get going, that's when this will get decided. Because if they're able to hit them, if they're able to prioritize them, they will end up doing pretty well. Alright, let's... Also, one more thing that really changed this, the fact that anything that gives regen also gives a slight heal. That will also change this quite a bit. Now, the Liches, they get access to dang near every single dark ability, so they have a lot of options. And by the looks of it, a lot of stuff ended up getting properly fixed. What I mean by that, you may have noticed there was a very weird layout of abilities in base game. And it seems like maybe a lot of that might have been just due to the fact that they were trying to get the AI to actually use everything. Which is something that Rakes has been going through a few times. Like, for example, when Poison was given a guaranteed hit ability, the AI just completely went nuts over that. Wait a minute, did I even phrase that right? When Poison was given a 100% chance to hit. If I didn't say it, that's what I meant to say. Anyhow, when it got that, the AI would just look at that 100% chance to hit, and they're like, oh god, that is the sexiest thing ever, I have to use this all the time. Oh, that's the first silent song. Also, despite the fact that it clearly says that, it's a song with no words. Well, I guess that was more of like a oh ha ho 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 kind of thing. Also, Warren, you have access to ease. Why on earth are you using the Farron Bolus? Whatever. So, they have all the Divine Swords, it seemed fitting. I figured there's no way that somebody can have Angel Knights without also having the Divine Weapons, or at least access to them, so... Fair enough, they get some usabilities. It seemed fitting. Like, I guarantee you, if I didn't give them the Erasion, Ambition, and the Beerhinder, I guarantee you somebody would have complained. So they're all there. Usually... Actually, I think they still fall under the sub-30 rule. Let me double check. There's a lot of poison flying around. Also kind of curious how these teams are holding up, because we haven't had any casualties, and we're like 10 minutes into this fight. Let's see. Yeah, the Angels are dang near full health. The Liches don't have many heals aside from their leech abilities. Now, let's see here. So yeah, the Ambition is a 30. The Erasion... Okay, the Erasion is the strongest then at 38. And then the Beerhinder, I believe, is a 20-something. Or no, it's also 30, but just gets Consecrated Edge. Which, okay, the nice thing is, though, with the Erasion, now I remember why I ended up still allowing that one, because the usability on it, the Requiem is something that they can do anyway. So it's one of the Angel Knight abilities, so it's fine. So we're gonna keep dropping curses. They do seem to like using curse a lot, I've noticed. Yeah, it's just a basic word of pain. Yeah, one thing that's really helping out the Liches is they're pretty phenomenally high resistance here, so a lot of their casting abilities from the Angels aren't going to do a whole lot. Not to mention with the Angels, because the fact that Liches aren't classed as undead in this one, even though it's arguable that maybe they should be, yeah, their light abilities won't end up doing extra damage to them. If you're wondering, hey, in base game, I didn't used to do extra damage with my light stuff, which, yeah, that was a weird thing. For some reason, with light stuff, if it did do any extra damage, it didn't really show it. So, like, if somebody was, for example, built around a dark build, if they had, say, augment light, then they would resist light. Otherwise, you know, everything else was just... Or no, if they had attenuate light, then they would have resisted it. Otherwise, it would basically do the same to everything else. And then occasionally would get resisted by certain armors and whatnot. It's an odd time. There were so many weird quirks to the base game, but by and large, they were just trying to make everything fairer, I guess. They didn't want anybody to get surprised out of nowhere with a kill they never expected. But, you know. It's a fun journey. It's a fun journey. Like, let's say you go through and you read all the stuff about the mod. You go through the mod once or twice, and then you go through the base game. It's just this weird journey of trying to understand the mentality behind each of the decisions that they made originally. Because there's so many times you can clearly see, like, there was this weird interaction between one or two things, and they just didn't know what to do about it. So there's that. Oh yeah, I probably should have gone ahead and thrown out the link to this thing, huh? Well, while this fight's going on, I'll go ahead and do that. Alright, visit old Reddit because new Reddit is bizarre and doesn't make any sense. That's strange. Reddit recently redid its website and it's awkward. It's really awkward. Oh, weird. First story on Reddit. Apparently Anthony Bourdain died. Dang. He was the food guy, wasn't he? Sounds right. There we go. I thought I... What? Oh, interesting. Apparently it's counting the other link I put in as the exact same one. Odd. I guess that makes sense, all things considered. Because it is literally the same link. Alright, there we go. The reflections are breaking out now. One thing I do know for sure is that the AI does not understand reflection, which is perfectly fine, actually, because why would they? It's an ability that only one class gets, and yeah, of course, nobody would understand how it works. That's a nice little detail, which, I guess a lot of the abilities, you can clearly tell that they went ahead and said, you know what, the AI is just going to ignore this, because we don't really want to explain it. Like, for example, if Swordmaster uses Preempt, like, you can look at that and just know, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to attack that guy, he's got Preempt on. But the AI will always attack that guy, and it's just more fun that way. You know, that's just how that goes. Oh, hello, third guy. How's it going? There we go, Celestial Aria, going for that AoE heal. Alright. That's the thing, so far one of the Angel Knights is down, but I still think the Angels should be winning this. Because they're the only ones that can actually win a battle of attrition. It's just the thing is, they have to hybrid all their guys, so they need to forego their offense in order to be able to actually heal. Still feels like they ought to be able to win, though. So the Liches haven't even broken out their strongest abilities, though. That's another thing that should probably be mentioned. So they have access to all of the Apocrypha stuff, they've got access to summons, they've got access to everything, and their MP regen is crazy. But there's really... Technically speaking, if it was under a player's control, I would probably end up going more along the lines of, whoa. Well, yeah, all of those MP resets are definitely not helping them. Jeez. By the way, if you missed it earlier, the way that that ability works, it saps their MP, and then does an equal amount of damage to their health. So, for example, all those ones there that had really high MP basically just got killed by that ability. So that's fun. Although, that being said, that's still only one Lich down for 2 Angels. It's still up in the air whether it'll ever be possible to turn the Liches into an actual undead unit, despite the fact that they literally become undead. But who knows? That's one of those weird quirks that's kind of carried over from base game. By the way, sorry if it's showing up as red for the stream again, so hopefully it's gonna be okay there. Yeah, so it might have a little bit of buffering. I apologize. But okay, so it's a weird system as far as these classes go. Because, okay, in order to make angels, you need to have skeletons, right? I don't really understand why, because you're basically going and... You know, like, let's say you have just one of your generics that you want to make into an angel knight. You would have to go find a necromancer. You would have to let them get killed. You would have to have that necromancer revive them as a zombie. You would take a Book of the Dead. You would go to, I think it was floor 23 or so. You would have them use the Book of the Dead in order to drop all their zombie flesh off and become a skeleton, at which point you would drag them over to Sambronza. You would get a blood-covered cross thing, and then you would take that blood-covered cross thing and have them jam it in their eyeball, and they suddenly turn into an angel for some reason. So, there's that. If you're wondering about the original version, because, you know, Angel Knights were always a thing in the series, you basically just had to have a unit die with a certain alignment. Like, let's say they were lawful or just neutral. Actually, no, I think it was only lawful. Like, let's say they were lawful, they had a 10% chance that when they died, they would come back as an angel. In the SNES version, it was just girls that could do that, and in the GBA game, in Night of Lotus, this applied to both characters, but they had to have gotten the Miracle Emblem, so that basically means that if they survived a hit at 10% health, like let's say they dodged something that was guaranteed going to kill them, they would get the Miracle Emblem. With that Miracle Emblem, if they died, they had a chance to come back as an Angel Knight. And what's funny is that you could keep going and using altars over and over and over and over and over until somebody just came back as an angel. See, like, honestly, I think KOL managed all of the weird mechanics the best way you possibly can, because they had options to edit everything, but they also didn't make it super complicated. So, like, okay, unit dies, right? They come back as an angel. Cool. If they were a good guy, they come back as an angel. If you want to make a Lich, you give them a Ring of the Dead, you have them with really high intelligence, and they're chaotic. So they're a bad guy, and essentially they have a ring that can turn them into a Lich. And they basically die while holding that stuff, and they come back as a Lich. So it makes perfect sense. Kinda, sorta. Like, they explain in all of them that it's like, if you have this ring and you die, you become a Lich. says nothing about the fact that you go to floor 41 of Palace of the Dead, pop that ring on, and that's how you become a Lich instead of just dying with it, because I'm sure that confused a lot of people. The weird part is they even mention this in the story. Like, they mention the fact that they changed the mechanic in the plot for some reason. Because they have a bit where Nibith hands over a Ring of the Dead to someone. Now, I believe in the original game it still failed for them because they didn't have the required stats. Like, they didn't have enough intelligence to become a Lich, or they were neutral so they didn't become one, or something like that. I forget if neutrals can go both ways or not. But that was the funny part. Like, they couldn't actually turn into a glitch, or into a Lich, because, you know, their stats weren't high enough, which, fair enough. In this one, they try to use the Ring of the Dead as they're dying. It's like, no, nothing happened because you're not on floor 41. It's such a weird way to do it. Like, oh, here's this thing that'll save you. As long as somebody drags you out of the fight, brings you back to life, and then drags you 40 floors down into my secret fun dungeon over here. And then that'll turn you into a Lich. So her main takeaway from the situation is just, he lied to me, this is BS. Which is a pretty fair assumption, because that is a really big stretch in order to be able to make any use of that relic. There's really no point. Not to mention, it's supposed to turn them undead and let them come back to life, whereas the Liches in the remake are not actually undead. They're just dudes that look dead. Yeah. Now, the ladies are basically there with their trademark check out the boobs hole, but the Liches just look like a straight-up mummy like they've always done, which makes it really unclear whether they're supposed to be actually undead or not. I don't know, because, like, look at that. He looks like a dried-out friggin' husk. That looks like a hollow. I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. And, yeah, the chick romancers here kind of look like, kind of look like dancers or something. They've got all those, like, little dancing discs dangling down from their face, which I'm sure is a religious thing for someone. Actually, there was this picture somebody posted a while ago. By the way, is it possible to make all heal-all abilities just work that fast? Because that's pretty awesome. There we go. The angels just took the lead. They took lead! Yeah, it would be cool for all of those abilities to just heal instantly. That'd be pretty sweet. Oh man, but you just got punished. The mass debuffs coming out. I'm still hoping one of them is going to sit in the back there and just get all of their MP up and just come in with an Apocrypha ability or something. But they're breaking out all the heals, yeah, not Necros, they're Liches. I keep wanting to call them Necros. There we go, we got a summon finally coming in. Not the most amazing damage, but did pretty alright. I don't know if they're going to end up having the ability to pull off an Apocrypha ability, because I think, even with everything considered, they're still... Oh, never mind. Liches just pulled it off. Pulled off evening the body count, I mean. Let's see here. Okay, magic-wise, what does this cost for them right now? So Abyss 2, okay. So they need 80 or 100, but it's reducing, I believe, 20% on each rank of... no, I think it's 5% on each rank of, of efficacy. So they should have 15% less cost, so they should have somewhere between 60 to 80 to be able to pull those off. Which is possible. There we go, more curses breaking out. Just they really need to break out their good damage abilities to be able to completely win this. Because the angels just keep recovering, the Liches keep locking them down, and it's all of the attrition damage that's actually killing them. Angels are mostly dying to poison, and it's the occasional sword hit that's going and killing off the Liches. So far, so good. By the way, to the guy that keeps coming and going, I hope it's not the connection there. It shows us stable right now. But yeah, I'm sure there will be an issue here or there. Been trying to find any other service provider that isn't Comcast, so hopefully we'll see. Yeah, there we go. That's that occasional damage that's doing it for them. By the way, if it wasn't explained earlier, they are running off of 64 times experience when they're using all their abilities, on top of the percentages that are already there from One Vision. So they're basically going to be ranking up most things from just using them. They come in at rank 1, and hopefully by the end they end up reaching rank 8. So we'll see. They should all just be improving over time. Let's see here. Huh. That moment when you randomly get a message talking about genitals. Interesting. Who knows? Alright. Scared off somebody else. Alrighty then. Mere strike. Yeah, they keep bunching themselves up, and that's what's getting them killed. Oof. Yeah, no, those multiple meteor strikes are gonna do it in for him, I think. That's another 2 down. I think the Liches actually might win this. It just all depends on if they end up doing more of those MP resets. Oh, there we go, they're breaking out a stop. That one's completely isolated, that one's completely isolated. That one is just completely having a bad day right now, because they're both shackled and stopped. Which, even the bind, shackle, stop abilities will end up overriding each other. That one's just screwed right now. What are you gonna do? Oh, they are gonna use Martyrdom! They do know how to use it. So there you go. Kane, I doubt you're watching this, but that's what Martyrdom does. It's one of the ones that a few classes can use it. Angel Knights can use it best, I think it was. But you basically can revive multiple units for the cost of 1. They also, I believe, get some... Actually, I don't know if the sacrifice ability was... Let's see. That, you know what, I need to double check, but I think it was actually Hamilton, not Angel Knights, that get a full revive. Because I think for that one, it's you sacrifice 90% of your health and then revive a guy, which used to be an Angel Knight ability, but then I think was OP for Angel Knights, and then wound up changing to just Hamilton's ability. We'll check after this fight. We'll check. He's going for Avalanche. Yeah, that's that Martyrdom move right there, though. That very well might have turned the fight around. So let's see. They're gonna heal them. Yeah, a lot of them are currently disabled, though. Alright, let's look at the counts. Because I believe the Angels are actually outnumbering them at this point. Okay, so we've got 7 Angels still standing, 7 Liches still standing. This can still go either way. This is way more even than I would have expected. As per usual, that's been the running theme of all these fights so far, because all these classes, they're balanced in such a way that they've all got stuff that they can do. Which sounds like a weird way to put it, but... Like, let's take a base game example, right? So you got... Let's say a really weak class, like you've got Clerics, right? Versus Knights. Oh, they just took out 3 with 1 move. This one's gonna finish off another 2. No, this might kill 3. Oh! Holy crap. They just sweeped hard right there. Wow. Okay. They just took out 6 of their guys in 2 turns. So, okay. What was I saying here? So, like, let's say you had clerics versus knights. The clerics would, if they were functioning as the AI... Oh, there we go. Okay, he's gonna sacrifice himself to bring 40 units back up. Alright, fair enough. So they might still do it, but they have to get rid of being bunched up. That's what's killing them here. But okay, so the clerics in that case would have had no options whatsoever. They have no offensive options to speak of unless you got them to rank 8 cudgels. Actually, no, I think rank 6 was the really strong one. Rank 4 was a strong one. But still, you were running into a lot of problems with the fact that their offense was completely limited by the fact that their kill moves were the only thing that could do any damage. That's why in the one fight that you fight against them, you end up going and seeing them throwing a bunch of bombs around. Which, okay, you know, fair enough, fair enough. So, so that's fine. Oh. Oh! That's a 400 damage summon right there. Man, these guys are boned. The Liches are really breaking out the hardcore stuff at this point. So, yeah, sour day of it. Sure, alright, whatever. But okay, so, you know, that's fine. They're a healer class, but still, that's kind of a bum deal for them. The Knights, on the other hand, have Rending Gale, which presumably they came in with a sword and board build. So Rending Gale would probably just instantly kill any cleric. Other than that, they're nearly untouchable damage-wise and, well, armor-wise. And yeah, there's just nothing the clerics would be able to do in that situation. But if you take that same example in One Vision, the clerics get access to claws, which have poison. That's their main offense. So, say you give them a counterattack ability, say you give them claws. Automatically, if they get hit, they will have a chance to poison the guy attacking them. They've got access to evasion gear, they've got access to middle-of-the-line armor. So they can potentially just keep healing themselves, plus also their heals are much, much stronger. So potentially, if they played it right, they would be able to just win that fight by attrition. So it's, you know, it's good. Alright, so next up. Wanted to see Rocks, or Cox vs. Rocks, fighting again. This time, though, the Rocks have access to their ranged abilities. I believe the Cockatrices do not have that. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. But the Rocks have specifically been made to be better at throwing rocks. Specifically, Rocks and Octopi are very good at throwing rocks. So, we'll see. We will see. So yeah, last time... Oh yeah, right, AI. Bloody bloody blah. I forgot to save their AIs last time. Good job, genius. I'll go ahead and do this experiment with them too, but I didn't have a chance to set them up yet. As per usual, they just swarm in there like a bunch of crazy friggin' chickens. And stream quality is garbage today. So for that, I apologize. It'll be up as an archive. I don't know. Nobody even left a comment. Oh well. Such things happen. Such things definitely happen, especially on a Friday. Like, I wish that I had more free Saturdays. But, oh well. So those guys are going in. So here's the deal on the thrown weapons for AI units. Now, previously, this was just something that wasn't available unless you were on the playing side, because the AI always just looked at them and thought, hey, this is... You know, I'm never supposed to use these innate abilities, so I'm just never going to bother. Because apparently I would assume the reason that they plopped that in there is because if the AI was always using innate abilities, there'd be some classes just going around slapping things, rather than going and using some of their abilities, which would have just been really stupid looking. Now, now the thing is, this also meant that the AI was never able to throw rocks. So the classes that were good at it, they just would never do it. So, if you've ever done a monster run of base game, you would be very familiar with the fact that you can just kind of outrange dang near everything. Now, here's the thing. In One Vision, these were changed quite a bit. So cockatrices and griffins are specifically made to be more hit-and-run type classes. So I believe cockatrices still get access to throw a boulder, but they're just a little bit worse at it. The boulders themselves, they have a much larger penalty for being used, but they also have a higher chance of knockback. So, so essentially you're getting a lot of range, you're getting a lot of knockback, but at the same time, you know, you're going to end up taking your next turn quite a bit later. But this time, the rocks should be able to attack from a distance, but they also will be much slower. Which is fine, because they're about as slow as literal rocks anyway, because they are literal rocks in most cases. Clay, iron, rock, and weird magic metal, pretty much. But hey, what can you do, right? What's interesting is the weird... okay. So, yesterday I was going through that base game Iron Man run, and I couldn't help but notice the fact that they basically took Damascus steel, and obviously in the real world that stuff got a pretty mythical reputation, but they made it like literally magical stuff in this one, because I never really thought about it, but it's 2 boulder and 1 steel to make a Woots, which Woots steel is basically Damascus steel. It's basically strengthened steel that has this really cool pattern to it. And so if you end up just looking up a picture of Damascus steel, it's pretty freaking awesome looking. But the funny part is that for the fact that so many people said Vikings were low tech and whatever else for some reason, dude, they were pretty freaking high tech. Not to mention they were some of the earliest Europeans running around with Damascus steel. They're showing up like, oh no, they're demons or something. They got these crazy looking weapons, and they got all these like cool veins that show up in the sword and everything. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things where they went around and traded with so many places that they wound up with a lot of really cool results. Actually, random note is something that I keep forgetting to mention. So I've been asked a few times what's been changed actual weapon-wise since base game, and obviously that's something that will take forever to describe. But the best example I can think of the mentality behind the changes in the mod is one that comes up very early, which is the very first, well, I guess, no, in this case, second, two-handed weapon that you get. Okay? So you got your basic one, your level 1 one, that's just going to be a broadsword. I believe it's a broadsword in both versions. The second one, as in the first one, you might actually buy. So, in One Vision, it's a longsword. You might be thinking, hey, that was a one-handed sword with a shield. Not exactly. Longswords were meant specifically to be usable with one hand, but they were primarily a two-handed weapon. They were a pretty long sword, as the name implies. If you wanted to go sword and board, typically a shorter weapon was the one that would be used. And here's the weird irony. For the first I guess second two-handed weapon that you would buy in the store, they decided to call it the Viking sword. Which is exactly wrong. Because okay, so while the longsword is often depicted as being a one-handed weapon that was predominantly used as a two-handed weapon that could be used as a one-handed, the Viking sword was exactly a one-handed weapon, and it was it was basically the Viking version of a small sword kind of thing, just a little bit bigger. And it's funny because I even have a replica of one of those that I picked up from this festival once. There was this weapon maker there that was making Viking replicas, and there was one that was basically historically more or less correct, and like, I gotta have one of them. So I picked it up. I still have it as a little thing. But yeah, no, it's like, you can't even use that thing with two hands. It's just like, it's a really short handle, just got a like spiky little pommel thing on the bottom, relatively short sword. It's like maybe 2.5 feet, give or take. Something like that, but the main idea was that it was a stabbing sword. It was to be used with a shield. You just stab around the shield. It's just like, that was the Viking sword. That was their thing. They liked shields, they liked short swords, they liked spears. Like, no, we gotta give them a two-handed sword. Like, no, dude, they had no use for two-handed swords. What's funny is because probably what they were thinking of is that there's oftentimes a misunderstanding, from what I've heard, that people mix up the Vikings with the Dacians, which is funny because they have the Dacian two-handed sword in this one too. That's the Falx. If you haven't heard of them before, they're basically a barbarian tribe that the Romans had a bunch of trouble with. In fact, if you look at the Roman helmets, that little crest, like rounded armor piece on the very top, a little reinforcement there, apparently came about while they were fighting the Dacians, because their preference was for a very large one-handed, well, not one-handed, two-handed sword. It was a relatively thin, kind of like, just think of it on a large katana with no handle. That's what those things kind of look like. So those things, actually, I think they became Romanian. I think they became Romania. That's who the Dacians became down the line, if I'm not mistaken. Anyhow, so those, that was one of the earliest instances of just like, let's take a sword and make it really big. And so they kept swinging at the helmets because they couldn't get around the shields too well, so they're like, let's just go for the helmets. And yeah, sure enough, it was enough to actually damage the early Roman helmets and get through in some cases. So they're like, okay, we need some reinforcement up top here, we're gonna have to make that happen. But yeah, so, just random interesting note. It's funny because looking through all of those Roman campaigns kind of looks like somebody would describe XCOM. This is literally just like, oh, let's go, fight this thing now, and then they encounter some new enemy, and they're like, crap, they just completely killed us. Let's go ahead and incorporate all this new technology, and then let's steal their technology and make it our technology. Like their swords, for example. They used to have a very different design of sword, not to mention had a bigger preference on spears. They fought some, I forget who it was, they were fighting some group that ended up having a large preference for shorter swords, and they really liked the design and incorporated it. It's like every time they would go, they would adjust their defense, they would beat the thing, and then they would usually try to incorporate whatever weapon it was. Now, due to the fact that they really loved their shield formations, stuff like the Falx wasn't really added in. However, they did end up learning how to reinforce a lot of their armor as a result. And there was that. Whoa. What in the absolute crap? Yeah, I'm got this article on genitalia. Interestingly enough. Weird. Yeah, we're having a boy pretty soon here, so this whole discussion of, well, obviously there's a cultural thing to mess with their parts. There's also, an idea of, hey, maybe don't. There's been a conversation back and forth. Anyway. This is a very long article. Alright. I'm gonna put this away for a minute. Because there's lots of scary things about cutting off people's junk. Or chunks of it thereof. There. So yeah, hopefully I should be switching internet providers pretty soon here, so hopefully the quality will be a little bit better and not scare people off, I would hope. We'll see. Yeah, I don't think the ranged weapons made any difference whatsoever. These rocks are just having a really bad time here. Actually, one thing that I think does deserve to be tested. I'm actually going to go ahead and cancel out of this one because it's pretty fair to say the Cockatrices won this. It's pretty absurdly one-sided at this point. Because yeah, they've... Actually, no, it's relatively even, but most of these guys are petrified. Alright. I really want to test this other one here. What I want to see is just how quickly those Angel Knights can make short work of some zombies. Let's make that happen. So we we've got the Undying here. So these were just 12 random zombies. There we go. Now, if all goes as expected, these zombies should have no chance whatsoever. So the Angel Knights obviously have a few abilities to deal with them, but they've got bonus damage against them because that system's actually been re-implemented in One Vision. They've got two different versions of Exorcise. One of them is just the straight Exorcism ability. The second one is actually the what's it called? Blah, blah, blah. They're a big AoE holy boom thing that basically vaporizes zombies. So that should be good too. There we go. So I believe it's like something like a 15% bonus against undead that holy gets. Not sure. But I would figure the Angel Knight should be able to beat these guys with no issues whatsoever. But we'll see. There's actually a bunch of necromancy abilities that have been made to be quite a bit better against the undead as well. Basically ones that'll just completely get rid of them immediately, but we'll see how those go too. So the next ones, I'm gonna have to double check. I think Liches still can use stuff like Recall, which is one of those abilities. I believe Recall is the one that shuts them down entirely. What else? They got two of them. One of them turns them to stone for a really long time. The other one basically just takes away all their health and makes them drop. But we'll see. Also, it's funny because I always call this thing Beer Hinder, but it's really like Brill Hinder. Whatever. I like calling it Beer Hinder, dang it. Just like I actually found out recently that there's people pronouncing Hobrim differently. So apparently with people that played the remake first, it's Hobrim. With people that played SNES first, it's Habrium. Which, I don't know. I don't know entirely about that, because I honestly still thought it was Hobrim in the original too, but oh well. That's neither here nor there. We can all agree that Ozma's Ozma, though. Okay, so, if you're wondering about these ghosts and zombies and stuff, by the way, they are just hired from the wild, pretty much. They are fresh new zombie Pokemons, but they were just freshly hired. Since some of their abilities were missing, I just gave them some fitting ones, so they all have only the 4 abilities that they came with. Not to mention, they still retained all of the spells that they knew, and any relevant weapon skills. So they start out at a slightly higher weapon level than the Angels do, but I don't expect their weapon level to even come into play in this fight. So yeah, obviously the Angels are doing a ton of extra damage because of their abilities, but it's really just the whole coming back to life thing that's gonna decide this, because I don't know how well the AI is gonna be able to exercise them. They all have exercise. They should hopefully gain enough MP from 1 or 2 turns to be able to use it pretty regularly. So I'd assume they'd know how to use that pretty well. I don't know about their big AoE move that vaporizes zombies, but it's very possible that that'll come into play. They need 100 for that to happen, so the highest I've seen so far is 70. So we'll see that at that point. And if you want to see any additional fights, feel free to let me know. The one after this will be Liches after zombies. So we'll see. Alrighty. Oh. Somebody's following me on Twitch? Interesting. I'm not even on Twitch right now. That even happened. How on earth did somebody actually find me on purpose? Usually I have to mention this, and usually the things that I end up doing are so niche that nobody ever ends up seeing it. Oh well. One can still dream, right? It's actually funny because it was mentioned a while ago, like, oh, you know, do this, 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 and you'll end up growing this channel and whatever else. Like, I really don't see this ever getting out of the hobby stage, because it's kind of like showing up and, you know, showing up with a horse with 3 legs saying, hey, I want to go win a Triple Crown now. It's like, the numbers aren't there, you know? It's like, you can try as you might. It's just there's only so many people that have ever heard of Tactics Ogre or Armored Core. That's the thing. And those are the things I know. I just happen to know very oddly specific things. So, such is life, you know? Such is life. Okay, so, I'm still very strongly betting on the Angel Knights here. Because this seems like it absolutely has to go their way. I don't really see any other way that this could go. So at some point I'll probably go ahead and make a maxed out team of zombies as well, just to see how that would go. Because it would be pretty fun... Oh yeah, there we go. I got the exorcisms properly. Just because it would be really fun to try and make the most difficult team I can think of just like completely maxed out, ridiculous OP level nonsense. And see how well these other AIs go against them. Although that being said, some of that already came in the form of my my end team for the One Vision run. Though it has to be noted that those guys are mostly OP on having base game stats. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you end up switching over a file from... well, I have not seen the AI use their AoE sleep ability yet. So, if you end up transferring a file, there really isn't a whole lot of transferring, you're using literally the same save file anyway, from base game. So, say you have a base game run you've been doing forever, you got pretty darn far in the thing, you're like, I want to try One Vision, but I don't want to restart. You can do that. Pretty much the only difference that's going to end up happening... Just want to listen to that music real quick for a sec. There we go. So, the only difference that's going to end up happening is people are going to have equipment in weird places, like you might find some of them wielding pants or something. It's mostly just because all of the items are saved on a grid, and a lot of those items were moved around in order to accommodate different stuff coming in and coming and going. So all you would need to do is re-equip your guys, but other than that, they're basically just going to be like a little bit stronger than their One Vision counterparts. Like, for example, base game Ozma would... just like, she wins on sheer stats alone. And that's basically the running theme with unique characters in base game. That whenever there's a fight or whatever else, they're winning because their stats are crazy high. They're not winning because they had some cool ability that let them do it. Like, for example, if there was a fight between base game Ozma and One Vision Ozma, which, by the way, I can set that up if you're interested. Aw, did the connection just drop? Really? No, come back to life. Come back, Internet. Oh, jeez. But yeah, if that kind of fight were to be set up, basically it would mean that base game Ozma would just have really high stats, and that's about it. She just hits stuff real hard. Whereas if you, for example, take her, same thing from One Vision, she has her petrification ability, she has a few different weapon abilities. Well, obviously she had a few different weapon abilities before as well. But she's got her petrification ability, she's got her a few different just outright shielding abilities. In general, she's going to win more because of trickery than because she had higher stats. Her actual stats are more or less the same as any other knight. She's just going to be maybe a little bit stronger, I think. I think she has, like, a couple points extra vit, a couple points extra strength. That's about it, if I recall. And it seems like the stream has completely broken. Awesome. Well, rip stream, I suppose. Such things happen. Alrighty. Is it coming back to life at all, or is it just completely busted? Okay. It's slowly coming back. I wonder if some neighbor's messing with something. That's really weird. It's like, it's basically going from 5k to 1k randomly. This is what I mean by Comcast sucks out here. Like, the only time this thing seems to work is when no one is in the building. Absurd. Alright, so far the zombies have only managed to kill one. I think it's safe to say they won this. Seems weird to waste your Requiem in that kind of fashion, but whatever floats your boat, buddy. Alright, by the way, you may notice that their Aegis didn't work. Yeah, Aegis does not work on undead anymore. It makes sense. How can they recover if they're dead? So there's that. By the way, thank you to that one guy that keeps instantly showing up to each of these. There's one individual that seems to always pop up at exactly when it starts. Good stuff. It's always nicer to see a 1 than a 0. But yeah, no, these zombies stood no chance. Also, something I should probably consider doing for the future is actually probably doing some of these rando test fights first. And then once people actually show up, since people usually show up around the end of the dang thing, probably do the actual main fight at that point. I'll probably end up doing that more in the future. So, for example, I would start off with something like this. Like, let's say I want to see they both function versus undead, so it would be angels versus undead, lich versus undead, and then it would be, you know, angels versus liches kind of thing. Though, come to think of it, we probably should do a quick rematch. Nice. Okay, so there, since they used Requiem, that zombie just got vaporized instead of going down. As you do. Son of a Liches is going already. How much did I miss? Well, you missed the first fight in which the Liches did a pretty amazing turnaround. You missed, which actually we're about to have a rematch. So about to do Angels versus the Liches rematch. Because I was just talking about the fact that that since it takes people a while to show up, I really should be doing these in the complete opposite order that I'm doing them. So from now on, it's going to be the like little test fights and stuff at the very start, and then once people actually start showing up, we'll do the main fight. Okay, so with so we've got the Heavens Hellions and Hell's Heavens Heathens. I know, but we got to make the pun work. So they're going to be fighting in the Palace of the Dead this time. Last time they were fighting at Fort Bode. Alright, let's make this happen. Wait, oops. Not the team I wanted to have happen here. Heavens Hellions, there we go. Let's do this thing. But yeah, so I was testing him against other stuff. There was obviously the update recently for monster units to get rocks. So I wanted to see if that would improve the fight versus Cox versus Rocks. Turns out it didn't really change much. The cockatrices still started winning the early fight, then odds are the rocks would have gotten unpetrified, probably punched out a few of them, and then turned the fight around at that point. So yeah. Unlike base game, again, if you're missing it, the Liches teleport, the Angels fly. Normally, any holy units would get a bonus versus undead ones, but the Liches don't technically count as undead, since they're still just dudes. Now, this was likely a system limitation, because having somebody switch their racial template, as it was apparently called, would essentially just not work properly, I guess. Though why exactly... Well, okay. Basically, in order for them to change back, they would need to use a particular item in a particular place, which I guess they felt was too much for a Lich, even though the original version was basically completely unchangeable. Any darn way. Point being, Liches, despite one of them looking like a straight-up mummy, they're not actually undead. They're just alive enough. So I guess we're just to assume they're hollows. But they'll probably live forever, they just look real gross, except for the ladies, who apparently still have their little cleavage window. Because, you know, you gotta attract those zombies to you. They're like, oh, no. All life has to go, all of everything has to go, but man, sweet boobies, though. That's definitely the way to go about this. So, you know, they cracked the code. Why has my controller decided to stop working? Controller, reconsider your decision, please. Thank you. That was random. There we go. So the Liches have all of the dark abilities. They've got they've got their reflection ability. They've got their MP, AoE, leeching, sharing kind of situation. They crowdfund their MP. Let's put it that way. It's a weird ability. So both of these, I believe, they had a different version of and different cost of in base game. So, like Salvation, if their health, or rather, if their MP is at 50% or below, they will sap it from everybody around them. If it's 50% or higher, wow, I'm speaking like Homestar today. If it's 50% or higher, they will end up spreading it out towards everybody that's around them. And then Reflection is just exactly what you would expect it to be, and it lasts quite a while. Can you imagine if Rick had cleavage? Yeah, no, he would have been doing so much better if he had cleavage, but apparently it's a male-only class. So he's got to talk his way up there. He can't be like, hey, boobs, come join me, and they're like, yeah, we're in. Yeah, we went in on that. What can I say? Everyone likes boobs. What can you do? Like, it's funny, so the conversation, I kid you not, came up in California once. I used to live in Long Beach for a little bit. And so, every now and then, you know, would end up driving my lunatic of a mother over to the town to get her hair done. And so, I ended up talking with them a few times, and dude, even gay dudes like boobs. So, like, literally everyone likes boobs. It's just a weirdly universal thing. And from an evolutionary standpoint, apparently it's supposed to mentally translate as everybody originally liked butts. And then, like, apparently over time it's translated to, wait, boobs also look kind of like butts. And they're on the front, so it's better. Or something. I don't know, it was a weird study to read. What can you do? What can you do? Let's see. Not that he didn't pass Necromancy with a D+ and became the world's worst Lich, mind you. Yeah, true. That guy, for all of his crazy overpowered abilities, underwhelming, I'm gonna go ahead and say. Like, I was kind of expecting he'd turn into a Lich, and then he became this friggin' God King among men, and, nah, he just waits till the end of his turn to attack twice. It was a lot of effort for what is basically already Steve. By the way, I apologize if the stream quality is so beyond garbage that it's almost unforgivable. It will have weird stuttering and loading, more than likely. This is just due to the fact that Comcast are dicks. I'm sorry. It's just what they do. I mean, they overcharge, they can't make their service work. And all they really do is come and they have little propaganda parties over at this building over and over and over. Like, I kid you not, we have a bunch of Comcast branded crap all over the apartment because they come out and they have lotteries and giveaways and everything else. Like, stop Like, stop with the free crap. We'll take the free crap, I guess. I mean, like, my wife got this cooler jug out of it that's actually really good, but still. A, we don't need blankets in summer. B, you know, thermos thing's alright. But C, your service doesn't even work. Just make it work rather than having parties all the time. They're trying to convert everybody in the entire complex to Comcast. Which I'm not sure what their options are because there are no other services here. Like, I've been looking into different ones over and over and over, and nothing. Like, there's nothing out here. So, who knows? Who knows? So, hopefully it'll come back. Literally, it's dying because probably one other person in the building is using it. So, 0 kilobytes per second. Sweet. So it must be restarting entirely then. Alright. Awesome. Awesome. So many dropped frames. Let's see, has it died? This stream rip. Very likely. It's stayed that way for a minute. Well, it says it still has internet access, so it hasn't completely died. But it's pretty friggin' close. Next worst thing. Thanks, Comcast. Yeah, there we go. Now we're back up to 8,000. Because, yeah. 8,000 is nice now that everyone's gone. Oh well. Oh well. We tried. Some days it works, most days it doesn't. Such is life, I suppose. Is it coming back? It's weird because the stream showed green for a little bit, but the online portion of it isn't showing green at all. Yeah, now it's back to 0 again. Comcast, you suck. Probably the weirder part is that they're probably even, like, listening to this kind of stuff. Like, they have something in their program like, oh, every time they say that we suck, we're gonna make it go worse. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised. They are the hands-down worst. Like, the conversation came up a little while ago, like, okay, look. You know, several family members now are complaining that it's just... their living spaces are too little, they're sick of living in apartments. Let's all just group together and go start a frickin' commune in the farmland here. I'm like, you know what? That sounds amazing. Like, I would absolutely adore that idea. Because every time I've lived out in the middle of nowhere, the internet connection has been amazing. Like, you'd think out in the middle of nowhere, the usual trope is, oh, you know, they gotta go fly their internet in by friggin' snail mail. No, if you live in the middle of nowhere, in most reasonable places, you're actually gonna have a really amazing connection. Actually, the best that I've ever seen, there's this little town in New Mexico called Rio Rancho. And, yeah, it's basically, if you've never heard of it, it is the town that Intel is based out of. That should give you an idea of how friggin' amazing their connection was. Like, it never dropped, it never slowed down, never did anything. There was one day that it slowed down slightly. They came and they dug up the entire friggin' street because that was deemed unacceptable to them. Like, Comcast would never do that. To contrast that, another time, was living in a kind of suburban area. Comcast comes out. And they're like, oh yeah, the service doesn't work. I'm sorry, we can't make it work. And their connection box is literally just right outside. Like, just go connect to it. No, I'm sorry, I'm not qualified to do this. So they send out another guy. Oh, I'm sorry, there was some complicated stuff here. I'm also not qualified to do this. They send out 6 people. You know what? Finally, I just got tired of it. Like, okay, just show me what's wrong with this thing so I can explain it to the next guy. So he drags me over. You know those you know those little cable connector things that are just like open on both ends with a little spike in there? They needed to attach one of those. Apparently, none of them were qualified to attach a box to the house. So I pick up the thing, just friggin' like attach it to there. He's like, oh, no, you can't alter our service, we'll take you to court. Like, 6 of you have come out to connect a wire and you couldn't do it. Like, our business runs online. It has been 6 weeks with no hope of an income of trying to run everything from a frickin' phone or library. You know? It's ridiculous. Let's see. I F5'd and now it shows up and the audio is back. I wasn't sure if that was you. I mean, oh yeah. It's just randomly coming and going. I'm pretty sure there's not even anyone else in the building right now, and it's still farting out of existence at random. I don't know. They just do this. I mean, there are times that they just straight up break for several hours, and when I call them and ask them about it, like, oh, no, they're just normal service interruptions. Like, what do I pay you for? This is an everyday thing. They literally have a period of several hours during the middle of the day where it just turns off. Like, what is that? It's 2018. They keep trying to act like it's normal, but it's like, dude, I've lived all over the country. It's only you guys anytime this happens. This isn't a locational thing. This isn't, like, anything weird about the area. This isn't anybody messing with it. This is Comcast is trash. That's it. But yeah, if you ever get a local internet company, those are the best. Like, hands down the best. It's not even a question. Actually, due to the way that units are kind of backing up here, are those all Liches that are down? I need to check the body count here. So we've got 2 Angels down, 3 Liches down. Angels, bear in mind, do still have martyrdom, so at any point, if a bunch of them are grouped up, they... Alright, let's see. Did you see Adam Ruins Everything episode on cable internet? It's exactly as depressing as you'd expect it to be. It reminds me of Google working hard to give internet to other countries. I have not. Let's see. Yeah, fiber optic is amazing. Like, I believe Leos got fiber optic not too long ago, which might explain how his connection is like 60 times faster than anyone else I know. Actually, when they were testing for the Armored Core tournament that was coming up, everybody that was fighting against him had just like perfect matches, no lag, no nothing. Like, his internet was good enough to somehow friggin' boost people in other countries. It's a miracle. I don't... That sound right there, that little heavenly... Oh, kind of sound, that, I assume that's what comes out of his internet, like, cables. It's just like, you pull it off and it's just like heavenly sounds coming out. Because it's this. Just this all the time. That's all that comes out if you unplug anything. Yeah, that mess is amazing. And/or, again... I assume local internet because there's a lot of local governments in the U.S. here that have started their own little cable or fiber optic situations. If you are in a town that has one of those, just get it. It's cheaper than Comcast, it's better, they almost never have downtime. They're really, really good. Not to mention, anything that gives a middle finger to Comcast is just good for karma. You know, if you believe in that sort of thing, if whatever religious relevant thing of karma, you just believe in good things coming and going, you know, just sticking it to Comcast is just one of those things that's universally a good thing. Because there's, as far as I see it, there's no more diggish company. Mostly because they're fighting so hard to not be viewed as a utility. Because if you're unaware, there were a bunch of there were actually a bunch of discussions in Congress and stuff like that of like, you know, there really should be a limit on the prices of cable and stuff like that. There really should be a limit on what they can charge for, what kind of packages they can give, because it's essentially a situation where everybody needs it at this point. It is a necessary thing for people to have internet. It's not... I mean, it's just like electricity, it's just like water, because you need it. You need to be able to check your emails, you need to be able to have constant access to the frickin' hive mind here, because otherwise, you know, you can't function without it. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere, you need it for stuff at this point. There we go. Okay. That was the first full-on dead disconnection, so hopefully it's fine now. Let's see. Okay, Longmont out here is a city that has fiber optics and it's nice outdoor archery ranges, far enough from the mountains, it's not on fire, washed away, blizzard, it's close enough not to have tornadoes. The city I'd want to live in if I could afford to. That sounds amazing. Sounds like heaven incarnate right there. But yeah, no, if you ever want to live in the West, dude, Rio Rancho is like the most pleasant place I've ever lived. And for some reason, every time that I hear mention where it is, people immediately think, "Oh, you lived in Mexico?" Like, no, it's not Mexico. It's New Mexico. It's amazing that how many people... It's just amazing how many people don't realize New Mexico is a state. Mexico is a country. They're like, oh, actually, no, one time I was flying, right? And the guy basically gives me back my IDs, like, "I'm sorry, we don't take out-of-country IDs. You won't be able to board your flight." Like, are you serious? Like, no, we don't take any out-of-country IDs, we cannot accept aliens on our flight. Like, okay. What exactly do you not understand here? That's a state. Like, no, Mexico's a country, sir, I'm aware. No. I'm looking at his hand all of a sudden, and he has his thumb over the new in my driver's license at the time. Like, "Sir, can you please move your thumb?" "Sir, don't give me orders!" And he calls his supervisor over, who's, who's, like, assuming some kind of fight's breaking out. This guy's going nuts and trying to kick me off the flight. Like, "Look, your guy needs to move his thumb. New Mexico is a state." It's like, "Oh yeah, I've never heard of that state." Like, it's literally right next to Arizona. Like, just give me a map and I'll show it to you. So he moves his thumb and sees that it's New Mexico. And he actually does have to look up the fact that it's a frickin' state on his phone. It's like, you guys are the TSA, you know? It's like, these are the ones that make the decisions, and they don't know what states are in the U.S. Oh, man. But yeah, no. New Mexico? Okay, I wouldn't recommend Albuquerque. I wouldn't recommend... God, never live in Moriarty. That's like Mafia Town, but yeah, Rio Rancho, that place is heaven. And then if you're an artsy-fartsy sort, there's always Belen. Definitely not Belen. What's it? Santa Fe. There we go. Santa Fe is the artsy-fartsy one. Belen is kind of the, you want to live out in the middle of nowhere and you're kind of broke kind of thing. But, yeah, I had a few land lots over there. Anyway, actually, do I still have some land lots over there? I should check. I forget where the hell I have land. Yes! Finally, someone used Abyss, and apparently it hit them so hard it exploded their pixels. Jeez. Finally! Was waiting for somebody to use Abyss this whole time. It wasn't Abyss 2, but hopefully someone will save up the points to use Abyss. Let's see, while everyone knows Florida exists, going north into the south led to a lot of situations where people wouldn't accept my ID. Haircuts, checks, anything when living in Georgia. Yeah, Georgia is kind of backwards. Although, if you ever stop there during peach season, you will have so many peaches, you will just end up getting sick of them forever. Let's see. Also hate the way they talked. A thick Florida accent, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, Florida is... Honestly, a lot of stuff in the South, it's just going to depend on where you go, right? So if you end up going to some of the cities, like, okay, let's take Florida as a whole there. So you go to Sarasota or something like that, there's just people with upturned noses all over the place, there's crazy money flying around. It's literally just, you want to find the medium amount of money. Because if there's a lot of money flying around, everyone's got their nose in the air, they're covered in pills, and you get all kinds of weirdness. Like, growing up in Sarasota, I always used to see people protesting the dumbest crap all the time. Like, I kid you not, people had a friggin' fit over this statue over there. They have a statue of, if you've ever seen the picture from World War II of a nurse and a soldier kissing, they had a statue of that. They have taken that thing down and put it back up and modified it and taken it down again and put it back up like 7 or 8 times. Because people kept coming out and protesting, like, oh, my children can see up her skirt. And no, they can't. It's literally just a block. It's a block there. You cannot see anything. There's nothing in that statue. It's just the outfit that they wore at the time, and it's just flat white on the bottom. Your kids aren't having their innocence ruined. So there was a whole thing over, God doesn't want this statue here. He'll punish our city if we don't take it down. So that kept happening. Then they replaced it with Carhenge, which, I kid you not, was Stonehenge remade with broken cars. A, it was awesome. B, it didn't last very long, unfortunately. So they brought back the sailor statue. People lost their crap again because they just basically expanded the area into the entire skirt that nobody could see anything. And then they were mad at the fact that they showed people kissing. It was unethical to show people kissing without saying that they were married first. God, Jesus freaking Christ. Okay, so they end up going back and forth about that over and over and over and over and over and over, and they remove it and put it back like 3 or 4 more times until finally, the most recent time I was there, it's still there. But they get up in arms about something every single week. It's ridiculous. It's like, there's kids with too much money, there's old people with too much time, and a whole lot of heat messing with people's heads. Alright, yeah, very true to my Tampa roots. I forget that Sarasota, Brandon, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Temple Terrace, Inverness, and Ybor City are real places and not like suburbs of Tampa. Yeah, pretty much. Man, I don't even think about Ybor City, and I always forget Ybor City exists until I hear it on the news, or as being part of a radio station. But, yeah, I'm really glad to not be in Florida anymore. It's... I go down there to visit my brother, but, man, did not like living out there. Have near-death experiences with the drivers every time I go down there. See, by contrast, in Denver, there's a giant blue demon horse statue right on our airport with Isaac Low Red. That is metal as crap. Oh, actually, yeah, no, wait. Denver, yes. Yes. That airport... Okay, I'm assuming you're talking about the big kind of, the one with all the monorails. That one is awesome, and I have to say that one soup place where they have that, like, kind of train track thing going up in the air, their soup is amazing. I don't know why they let people smoke in there. But they also have that Apocalypse Airport over there, which is pretty darn cool. If you ever look up the Denver Apocalypse Airport, or whatever you want to call it, just Denver Weird Airport, whatever, they have one that was presumably supposed to be some secret FBI bunker or some crap. It's like if the end times came. It's like, got all this stuff that basically looks like stalker graffiti all over the place. If Kaiju invades, all the statues come to life. Yeah, that could work. That could work. Oh, and then the RoboCop statue in Detroit comes to life as well. And you just have, like, the St. Louis Arc turn into, like, some kind of giant bipedal thing. Just, like, some cannon pops at the top. The Washington Monument just just sprouts legs and runs around spiking stuff. Oh, man. Someone needs to make that movie. It's like all the statues and monuments come to life to go fight Godzilla. That would be legendary. Yeah, you know what? Why don't you write that book? That would be awesome. Alright, let's check the death count here. Has my controller gone rip again? Sure has. There we go. Let's see, there's the Rocky Mountain Arsenal 2, it's just a wildlife preserve now, but they used to inject liquefied mustard gas into the earth, which lubricated a fault and caused an earthquake. Nice! Ah, man, that is weirdly specific right there. Alright, so we've got some very, 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 very healthy angels to some very not-so-healthy 3 liches left. So, this is all going to come down to whether or not they pull off the same thing as last time. So, if you missed it the first time, it was functionally a thing where there were 7 angels left to 6 liches. Then 2 of those liches came out and they dropped Meteor 4s, and then I think another one came in and dropped a Cragfall 3 onto the entire group and wiped out all but one of them. It was pretty amazing. Let's see. Bothers me so much that no one who lives here is even willing to entertain the thought that there may be a giant monster living under the earth and the US government was trying to kill it. Like that's the plot of an amazing horror story right there. US governments inject mustard gas into earth, causes earthquake as the great world worm dies. Oh man. Oh man. Viking legends applied to the US? That'd be friggin' amazing. Huh. Need to make that happen. Oh dude! That works out perfectly! You know why? Because that's why the Vikings were trying to settle America. They were trying to stop the world serpent. Oh, that'd be great. That would be friggin' great. I know, the worm is like a two-legged dragon type situation, but still! That would work out so well. Like, you start off the story like, okay, you know, Mr. Erickson, we're trying to go and take over this thing, and then they get to Florida, and they're like, oh crap, you know, we friggin' died, and then get all the ones that were coming up from the north side, and they settle Canada, like, okay, gotta go find the world worm down there, and then they go down, and then they can't really make any progress, so they can't make it all the way to Denver. They have, like, all these crystals and runes and crap that are pointing them in that direction, and then suddenly, like, his great ancestor or something just comes out, and he's over and he's working with the Department of Defense or something, and and he's just like this guy with a ridiculously huge beard. And then halfway through the movie, he realizes that he's a descendant of the Vikings, so he goes and he like puts all those beads in his beard and everything, like attaches a battle axe to a machine gun or something. Oh man, I want that. Just like, oh man, just the poster for it. There's like this guy with like the old like Varangian helms and whatever, or whatever the crap. I was just like calling them Varangian helms, but the ones that are always shown on the Varangian guard, and he's like there with a shield, except it's got like all kinds of like military grade armor plates on it and stuff. And he's just there holding like an M4 with a battle axe duct tape to it. Yes. Yes. Actually, you know what? They need to have, what's his face? They need to have that guy that plays the red-haired crazy guy, I think, in Game of Thrones. Nah, no. Actually, you know who they need? They need the guy that, the head guy from Vikings. That's who they need. That guy's a perfect Viking-looking dude. Except just, like, have him in a suit and relatively, you know, low-key most of it. Yes. I want this movie! When's this movie happening? And then odds are, we'd end up going to the movie theater, and then there'd be some romantic comedy, and then we'd end up having to go see that instead. That being said, I was excited to hopefully go see Deadpool 2 or something. Wound up seeing this movie called Overboard the other day, which was romantic comedy, you know. Gotta go watch the family stuff. Surprisingly, for a movie that was apparently meant as just one giant reference to Spanish TV shows and being a rom-com and all that, surprisingly good, actually. Actually enjoyed that thing. Like, it's literally just a story of this cleaning lady goes to try to clean some a-hole's yacht, and he basically wants to fire her for like refusing to get him a smoothie or something, and then she refuses to leave without getting paid, which he should be paying the company and not her, but whatever, we'll overlook that detail. So he ends up throwing her cleaning equipment and her overboard, like literally just boots her off the ship. Then he falls off said ship, somehow gets amnesia from that, and so she convinces him that he's her husband and just basically forces him to do manual labor for like a month. At which point they end up doing it and then realizing they became an actual couple, at which point he realizes he's a billionaire, at which point he basically decides, screw it, he's actually fine with the low-key life, at which point they realize that he still owns the giant yacht from the very beginning, so he's a millionaire and a family guy now. And then everything just kind of conveniently works out. But legitimately more fun to watch than I would have expected. Alright, so right now, what this Lich needs to do is to, like, throw some charms around or something. Like, if he does that, there's a possibility for some good stuff here. But, other than that, he's got no chance. But it's interesting to see how this can completely go either way. Oh! And it's actually their leader that's still alive. So if you haven't played KOL before, their leader is Kale, the guy that basically turns into a carpet when you beat him. Actually, he turns into a carpet before the fight, too. But he's the first boss that you run into at the Heaven's Gate. And he's the first Lich that you're likely to see, and he will usually kick you right in the anus. So that's not a fun time. But yeah, Liches and KOL are stupidly OP. For some reason, they are a wizard with the highest defense in the game, bar none. So in one vision, they've got really high resistance, they've got okay defense, they've got pretty powerful casting abilities, they can teleport, but they are slow as crap. As you can probably tell. Presumably their knees really hurt on account of the whole being a crazy hollow undead type situation. Who knows? Oh, by the way, Vin/Vale/whatever your name happens to be today, as far as yesterday's March of the Black Queen stream, yeah, I don't know. That thing is cursed, because every time I try to stream it, like, something happens. Like yesterday, I kind of got interrupted, and then that interruption turned into kind of a much more long-winded interruption, which wound up being like a several-hour thing. So, yeah. Wound up not doing anything else for the rest of the day, but I did set up the Liches and Angels, which, by the way, yeah, if you try to bring skeletons down and make them into Liches, you can't. Because presumably the power of regrowing boobies is just too much for the power of undeath to do. So you make skeletons into angels, but you make regular dudes into Liches. Don't even know why. No freaking idea. Is the hat-throwing thief from Final Fantasy Tactics of the KOL fans? Very true. Very true. Oh man, you know what? Kinda tempted to remake Hat-Throwing Thief. Because I can give him a fancy hat, and I can make him a thief. And really, he'll just die because, you know, rogues. But still. How the hell do you even get angels in Tactics Ogre? It depends. Okay, so in the original SNES, you had to have a girl that was lawful, and they had a 10% chance to just turn into an angel if they died. As far as the mechanics in March of the Black Queen and OB64, I believe they had to be of a really high alignment and have some kind of promotional item. Vin would actually be able to tell you more about that one. Because, yeah, I actually haven't used angels in those just yet. I don't remember how I got them. Wait, I know priests can hire them, too, in that one. In Knight of Lotus, you had to have somebody with a miracle emblem, so they had to have 10% health. They had to survive a hit at 10% health, which gave them that emblem, which increased their crit rate and also enabled them to become an Angel Knight. And then I believe they had like a 30% chance that as soon as they were killed, they would become an angel instead. Let's see, and the method with a PSP game... okay, so in One Vision and in the PSP remake, it's the same thing, although in One Vision it is a lot more possible to actually get multiples of them. So, the method is, if you want to get a Lich, you take any character that you want, you kill zombies and other crap until you get a Ring of the Dead. There's only a few floors where they can actually drop, it's a little bit douchey, but anyway, I think there's only like, I think one of the floor 30s, there's, I believe it is a Lich that can drop the Ring of the Dead. So it's a consumable item, but you bring them to floor 41, and at that point you can use the item and it turns somebody into a Lich. This will let any character become a Lich. However, if you want an Angel Knight, you have to go through a bit more stupid of a process. So, if you want an Angel Knight, well, technically you just need to bring a skeleton to the 3rd floor of San Bronza and then use an Ensanguined Brood. You can get one on the very first map if you get a lucky drop. Actually, you seem to be pretty likely to get at least one, but I don't know why they assumed you would have a skeleton with you. If you want to turn one of your units into an angel, however, you would have to essentially have a Necromancer in your team, you would have to let that unit get knocked out, You would have to wake them up by turning them into a zombie. You then get a Book of the Dead drop in Palace of the Dead, which, again, you'd have to look up the drop charts to figure out where to get one of those. Then you bring them to floor 23, I want to say? I think it was floor 23. It's the one where you run to Beale's booth for the first time. You use that Book of the Dead there. It causes all their zombie bits to fall off so they become a skeleton. Then you drag that skeleton... then you drag that skeleton all the way up to San Bronza. Then you start questioning your life decisions, because why would you possibly do this ridiculously long thing? It's funny, because I actually made a video on that not too long ago, as far as making somebody into an Angel Knight. But yeah, and then if you want a Lich, yeah, you just bring him to one spot and use that item, and that's it. Okay, so I have one Lich, no idea how I got it. You probably used a Ring of the Dead on that one floor, because it's the only way to make it happen. In the other Tactics Ogre games, I believe in Knight of Lotus, you had to have, I want to say, just Sorcerer's Stone. They had to be chaotic. And then I forget, I think they still needed the Ring of the Dead when they died. In the other one, in the original Lux with the SNES, that unit just had to die while holding a Ring of the Dead. So they automatically came back as a Lich. However, during the plot, there was a unit that tried to do the same exact thing. She didn't have enough intelligence, so if you don't have enough intelligence, you do not come back as a Lich. Or if you're not chaotic, I believe. I forget if new are allowed to do it. Anyway, this leaves one more then, which was to see how Hell's Heathens here end up fighting against zombies, because they should be able to also completely rock them, but we'll see. And that'll probably be the last one for today. Alright. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a process. It's a bit simpler if you just want to get one, because then you can just go and hire... You know, just go hire a skeleton or something like that, which, again, is a bit of a pain in the nads of its own. Oh yeah, I forgot that I forgot to set these guys AI. Derp. Alright, let's set you a-holes up. Yeah, I don't know why the remake is such a process. They wanted to make it like a whole immersive thing, but it just kind of came out as stupid. Oh well. Oh well. It'll happen. There we go. See, that depends. In one vision, they're very worth it. Like, base game, I don't see why anyone would bother, because Angel Knights are like a regular knight that can fly, pretty much. Liches are just an improved caster unit, so if you end up getting them, cool. If not, whatever. It's kind of annoying because you end up starting them from level 1, but the plus side being, if you already had a good caster, you level them all the way up from level 1, their base stats will be ridiculously high, so they'll become crazy strong. Again, there's a lot of weird stuff like that, and it's just the whole level by class, or rather, getting the stat increases from that class, and then potentially maxing out at level 50 just leads to a lot of... if you're aware of the meta, it gets annoying. Let's just put it that way. I think that's one of the reasons that OV actually removed that system. It's the only thing that's been straight up removed because it's implemented in better ways. So your classes level up, but most of the time your actual units, if you end up picking up cards, you end up getting a lot more stat gains from them. So like if you pick up a card, you actually do gain stats. Base game, it was something like 0.1 to 0.3 they ended up getting. If you played the SNES game, this might seem weird because it was just 1 to 3 for your stats. So it was basically restored back to that system. Let's see. The Lawful Root Unlocked has 2 recruitable Liches that the enemy throws at you. Does it? I don't know if it does. I know it has Necromancers. Lawful does definitely have a couple of Necromancers. Because, yeah, in order to recruit a Lich, I'm pretty sure the only way that you can do it is either if you find one of the ones that's recruitable in Palace of the Dead, which should be on all routes, or if you make your own. So yeah, you can't just recruit them. Bear in mind, there are some Heaven, like regular Heaven Knights, or Divine Knights, or Angel Knights, or whatever the crap you want to call them, in San Bronza, so you can just go and hire them if you want. So, okay, so far, these guys are having a much harder time against these zombies. So here's the thing, they've got a couple of abilities. Let's see if they're able to, if they actually do have them. I need to double check this, because I thought they were necro only, possibly. Yeah, no, actually, those were, no, here we go. No, they were in fact necro only. Okay, so these guys should potentially have no options to actually deal with these zombies, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Lawful already has enough kind of extras, so I'm pretty sure they didn't need to allow free Liches either. Yeah, base game, Angels have 100% loyalty, so I don't know if you can actually recruit them. Yeah, it always said 0%. That's the thing, though. They were for, specifically... Wait a minute. No, not the San Bronza ones. I'm wrong on that. You're correct. Okay, so the ones in San Bronza, the gold ones, I don't believe they can be recruited. However, there are ones in, I want to say floor 113 or something of Palace of the Dead. In the DLC floors, there were angel ones. I remember reading that somewhere. I think I saw one of them once. But yeah. So I'm like 90% certain the zombies have to win this, because I'm sure that all that the Liches can do is stall here. Because they don't get the insta-kill abilities that the Necros do. I think those were the only two that they couldn't get. So the Liches got some new stuff in the last couple patches to basically let them insta-kill zombies, because they didn't really have a whole lot of options if some zombies came close to them, so they were weirdly weak to them, as opposed to being the masters of them. So Necros got... Hello, disconnections! I'm still munching away. This was one very long breakfast. Yeah, come to think of it, I think you could even get an Ensanguined Rood in later parts of Palace of the Dead. But okay, that's actually where I should probably mention something I started bringing up earlier. So the reason I say they're far easier to get in one vision, so the guaranteed drop patch will be coming. Essentially that means if something, like let's say it would drop a Ensanguined Rood, or you know, a Ring of the Dead or something like that. Obviously, nobody likes grinding for drops, and in the original SNES game and KOL, if there was a unique item, they were guaranteed to drop it. So, he was actually working on implementing that particular thing down the road. The idea was he was finishing up with locations of different items. And if you're wondering why exactly those things are relevant, it's mostly just because of where things are on the hex chart. So, for example, if he ended up implementing it right now, it would just result in a situation where there may be a guaranteed drop of some random item instead of the one that you actually want. So then every time he moved something around, he would have to go back and redo it or something like that. So, you know, it's just basically to avoid redoing stuff in the future. But, when it comes to like the Ring of the Dead and Ensanguined Rood, what was implemented so far is the ability to collect more than one at a time. You may have had a frustrating moment if you ever tried to get a party of these units in base game, because you keep going for that drop, and going for that drop, and going for that drop, and several hours later, you know, loot grinding, you may take the game and want to throw it in a dumpster fire. But then, you know, somebody helpful on a forum points out, hey, you can only get one, and the game certainly wasn't about to tell. So, you can actually just pick up a giant pile of them now. So, you know, you don't have to make an entire extra trip each time. Because let's be honest, Liches, base game, they were cool, they were not worth a whole separate trip each time you wanted to do that. Angels were nifty. No one's gonna go make a whole second trip every time they want to do that. Like, their whole thing was they were an angel that can, or they were a knight that can fly. Oh, what else you can do to make that happen? You can just put some wing rings on, or wing stuff on a knight. You can just, you know, make him fly. You can potentially just make him teleport with cards that are available from the very start of the game. And you know what the nice thing is? It doesn't take 20 hours to set up. So there was that. Now, Obviously, it doesn't completely take 20 hours. Getting these guys set up while already having all the items took me like 3-4 days in total, probably.